Alright, this is a new Let's Play, can you imagine it? This is going to be Doom 2 the way it did, and I'll be having a guest, a fabulous Alfonzo from Doom World.
Oh, fabulous. That's nice
yes,
to hear.
Pretty well, judging by your Skype avatar, pretty fabulous.
Oh boy. No, I promise you, I've trimmed my beard and cut my hair since then. It's a little less disheveled.
Oh, this is a disappointment. Well, I'm pretty much exactly like that, so, well, now I'm fabulous, I guess. And, well, for those of you who are not from Doom World, this guy is from Doom World, and this project is from, well, mostly from Doom World, I'd say. And the aim of this project was to make a Doom 2 from, like, a parallel universe, where the same authors, the same kind of general thing, but they just made the maps on different days of the month and they came out a bit differently or something like that. I know there's an official statement about what's the project goals, and at least I remember one from the first Doom, the way it did, and it didn't really make as much sense as what I just said, so I'm going to word it like that.
Well, for anyone who's played the original Doom the way it did, it'll be essentially the same deal, but for Doom 2. In fact, it is identical. Pretty much, it's a doppelganger of Doom 2. So if you're familiar with the first project, then you know what you're getting into with this one.
Well, and if you're not, you'll just have to wait and see, I guess. And, well, let's just start while I talk. As I told Alfonso before, this is a bit of a controversial setup. I have the very low resolution, and of course I'm going to be rendering it in 1080p, and also I'm going to be playing on ultra violence and without mouse. So let's see how it goes.
Well, great, that's retro. There you have it. If anything, your setup here is much better than it would otherwise be.
And, well, it's still Z-Doom, because it's the one port that I'm comfortable playing. Oh wait, no, I have to remap space to shoot instead of jump. Where's the controls? Yes.
I think that music might be a little bit loud, actually.
Okay, let me go and lower it a little bit. No one wants to hear this tuning for like the thousandth time by now, I guess. So yeah, that's gonna be that. I hope I don't die like 1,000 times on the first map or anything. And the first map already, there is probably one of the more interesting slots actually for me in this WOD, because when I was watching Alfonso's streams, and by the way, there's totally going to be a link in the description because everyone should go and watch them, it's pretty entertaining stuff. Why are you chuckling there?
Well, I mean, I've actually just come off a stream in which I was pretending to be drunk, so it's probably not the best time to advertise my stream.
Well, or maybe the best time. But let's just say, well, there were some map 01s played in those streams that were rejected for being too long and complex. And this is a bit of an interesting issue for me, because I forget how small map 01 is. And if I was a project leader, I would probably do terrible, but I wouldn't have rejected them because I wouldn't even pay attention to the length or anything. But this already looks a bit more complicated than, I mean, architecturally.
It is. I mean, no matter how hard we try, there are always going to be things, you know, modern elements that we drag into the maps, whether we like it or not, and we try to keep them down. But this is the map by Rock King.
Okay.
It was actually, I think, the third map one that he attempted for the project, and it was very interesting to note and compare with the first Doom the way it did, that most of the map 1 submissions came very, very late. I mean, you'd think it's something that people would really want to have a crack at early on. You know, must get the map 1 slot. It's going to be the most recognizable. It's going to be sort of plinth of Doom the way it did. But so it's very strange to see. We actually got a lot of submissions, as it turns out, for the first Doom the way it did for the first map. But yeah, this was actually one of the last maps to be added into the set, which was surprising for everyone, I think.
I'd say that probably the project organizers would be the ones who would want map 01 to come as fast as possible, but if I was like submitting maps for a project like this, I would probably have no enthusiasm whatsoever towards trying a map 01, because I don't really want to make a really short map. For that one thing that I actually took part in, what was it, Doom 2 in name only, 2 of the 3 maps are pretty late, and I just like big maps and such. So, well, yeah, this thing is like, let's take that corridor, retexture it a bit and make it a bit wider. And of course I have no problem with that sort of thing, but well, I don't even know what I'm trying to say there. I have no expertise whatsoever on like the various mapper styles from the original games. I only can recognize probably Sandy Peterson, and
Oh yeah?
that would be a stretch. I could probably recognize American McGee. That's only because he's probably the closest of the original mappers to what I do if I'm totally free to do whatever I wish, because I cannot help but do everything rectangularly and a bit more detailed than this, even though I may not like it. So, well, if I'm probably not the best commentator for this WOD, because the thing that I got... Whoa, this thing is weird.
It is peculiar, isn't it?
Yes.
But Sandy is very peculiar and
Yeah.
pointless, and I mean, I have no idea what that could possibly be used for, but
Unrealistic, -1 out of 10. Goodbye. Well, what was I saying before? I forgot. Oh yes, the thing that the project leaders, or just people who felt the most competent, I guess probably you and Tonsman, who were judging how Doom 2 like this whole thing was, they were probably way more like the thing that you cared for most was exactly that, the compliance with the original styles, and that's well, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, feel free, but that's probably the aspect of these maps that I'm going to be the least perceptive to. So well,
right. Well, I mean, one of the problems that we were faced was, which we actually solved rather early on, was how strict we were going to be with regards to, you know, replicating the mapper's design. It seemed to me that the only... Fuck me sideways. Wow, that's an edit of the... Where did that come from? Did you customize that?
yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I opened some text file for some reason and I saw that you could edit the secret message, and I just went for
I'm
it.
gonna have to go wild on that. I didn't know that existed.
I don't
Anyway,
remember where it is, so I can't really tell you.
No, we decided ultimately to be as strict as we possibly could, because if we started middling around and you know, raising questions as, you know, maybe we should allow this to sneak in even though it's not in the style of Sandy Peterson, then we'd hit a lot of bumps in the road. It was much easier to say, okay, let's just find out as much as we possibly can about this author's style, and let's try to stick to it as hard as we possibly can. And it's really only when you get down to the very nitty-gritty stuff that people really aren't going to notice that you can say, well, okay, whatever, leave it in. And I think some of those things are gonna crop up in future. You know, about 2-3 years from now, I'll be playing a map and I'll say, well, that's not Sandy Peterson at all. But you know, I think we did a fairly decent job on it, to be honest. And anything that's not the most obvious aspects of the author's style, I think, have been captured.
Well, it does feel, and that is like I am, from what I've gathered on the forums, I guess I am just like the master of subjective opinions and subjecting other people to my subjective opinions, and well, in my subjective opinion, this does feel a lot like Doom 2. While I'm struggling to find out how to get up there. I know this. The thing. Apparently, some of the early maps are going to be short, so I don't know if I should just blaze through them or look around for secrets, because that was kind of what I would do if I was playing by myself. I would totally just spend half an hour looking for that last fucking secret. But I'm not sure it would be the best material for Let's Play, so let's just ignore that. Unless I'm missing something really obvious.
I mean, it's up to you, but
I'm hearing something.
I would personally encourage one to just skip material, because it really does offer replay value. I mean, in modern map sets, you're not really sure whether you're going to return to a map or not, or a map set, and so you'll try to get as much as you possibly can in the first time through, or you'll not care about it at all. In this case, the maps are really quick to get through. There's a lot of expansive material, so I think it's sensible, although you can play however you like, just to casually go through it. And if you miss any secrets, then so what? Hopefully you'll like it enough to come back and then rediscover secrets the second, third, fourth time around, whatever.
Well, maybe this is one of the like more fundamental WODs, if I'm allowed to use that kind of word about a custom WOD. Like the ones that matter and the ones that I would probably consider replaying at some point, like are the two Doom, the way it did, and probably some of Linus's maps, which are for some weird reason the ones like my favorite maps probably from my memory, conscious memory. So yeah, I will probably replay this at some point, maybe not. I usually do not replay stuff, even to the point where if I die, I like playing the first time and I forget to save for a while and I die and I have to replay a bit part from it, I say no, I don't really want to do that. And so many WODs have been abandoned just because I died somewhere in map 3.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I'm very much in the same boat, and especially if you're going to be made to play it the same way, you know, if you die and reload it. Whereas in something like this, or at least that's what we intended to do, was to, if you died, you could play it 2, 3, 4 different ways in an attempt to get to the exit. Non-linearity is basically just the word I could have used there.
One word, just one word. Well, I don't think I actually, even when the maps are non-linear, I think I still play the exact same way every time. So I don't know. Well, I hopefully will not forget to save too much during this, because I have been being conscious about that, about making sure to save after having to replay a lot of stuff in DTST back in that Let's Play.
I imagine.
So I already saved like 2 or 3 times by now in its personal record. I'm totally going to die here like an idiot. Okay, so was I don't remember if there was anything either was talking about before. Oh right, for cases like this I obviously requested you politely that you collect all the possible trivia and anecdotes and remember them and share them, so I'm sure there's like tons of encyclopedias.
Oh god, yeah. It has a very rich development history, lots of ins and outs and periods of no activity and periods of sudden surges. In fact, this is a map by Tonsman, and Tonsman was a mapper who, when he arrived, he totally blitzed the project. We were probably just approaching half the map's completion, and then he's such a fast mapper, and he's so quick to fall into the groove. This is his I think his second or third McGee map. He made his first map. It was a map 5 submission, I think. It was one of the first ones that he attempted to make, and he made it in just a couple of days, and then sacked it, and then started again. I mean, he's so prolific that he can evolve his style very quickly to really hone in on what it is. So I think this is one of the most authentic, and indeed I think he's one of the best at creating authentic maps in the set. His style doesn't really show through that much at all. In fact, I would be fooled for thinking that this was a McGee map personally.
Well, as someone who really doesn't recognize it that well, I would actually say that, well, mostly from the maps that I saw in the streams, which I understand not all of them made it in, but a lot of them were kind of, well, first of all, a lot of them were Tonsman's maps, I think, and a lot of them, and this one actually does also, this looks like a layout that's a bit more, I don't know, maybe I'm just misremembering, but I did play through the first, like, couple episode of Doom 2 at work in the past couple days, and
Cheeky.
well, I've got nothing to do there, so I just installed Doom Builder, and I just...
No, I'm not judging.
Yeah, that's probably the best job I could have got, where I can just kind of 7 out of 8 hours I can sit, read stuff on the internet, or play Doom or map for Doom, and no one is going to care. But yeah, this actually does look... I don't know, there's just some... I feel like Tonsman and a lot of mappers just came to the style of layouts most of all. It's this slightly more complex, more intertwined, height variation, all that stuff that people praise, and it's kind of a bit more complex and I don't know, well realized than original maps were. And this feels like, what if American McGee spent, I don't know, a couple years mapping for Doom 2, and he developed his style to a bit more dynamic gameplay, and that's what he would have made. But that's probably absolute bullshit, and I'm talking out of my ass, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, okay, fair enough. There's actually an awful lot of, we call them P-Whatisms, or it's the word that we use to describe things that many people would regard as modern mapping traits, which were actually American McGee in particular, or rather exclusively for Doom 2, used a heck of a lot. I mean, Sandy does have some of them, such as in The Chasm, for example, he has a computer console which you can press. It doesn't have any switch to it. And I, for a time, thought that was just something that modern mappers did, but that's something that Sandy Peterson did as well. So often the case is that when you go back and look at some of these authors, you find things that you're very surprised to find that, you would often regard as being more modern, or certain details that just are really, really intricate and strike you as being something that, a mapper of 1994, coming from Dallas, Texas, probably wouldn't do. But such is the case. And in particular, in American McGee's case, he does a heck of a lot of almost pointless, trivial little details that you'll certainly notice, but you have to wonder, did he just get bored when he was sitting down and he just decided to fill up empty space with tons of pointless line defs? There's the exit in map 14, for example, which basically hogs half the line defs in a map with some stupid little architecture thing, which looks goofy as hell. But honestly, that's half of the fun in Doom to the way it did when we were making it. It was being able to put in that trivial, pointless stuff that some people might even think might make the map look worse. But it's authentic, and we've made the decision to go flat out and include everything that was like the author as possible and omit nothing. And so we enabled ourselves to do that, and so we had a lot of fun doing it.
Well, I feel like a lot of people would probably love to return to this older style of Doom where you cared less about everything being neat and carefully done and meticulously done, but they need kind of an excuse to do that because they wouldn't feel comfortable doing it just for some random megawatt of their own. And this project is probably the best excuse to do something like that. There, you are not only excused from being a bit lazy or pretending to be lazy, but you're outright just expected to be mapping that style. And well, I don't know what was the point of that point, but what I feel so far about it, well, maybe this map in particular, like the original Doom 2 mappers were kind of novices in this whole 3D first-person shooter thing, and well, if we are honest, I think, and these feel like surely like what if they were a bit more competent? What if they still didn't have a lot of reference like from other games, or just I don't know, just to know what looks good, but if they had enough playtime with their own game to know what plays good and what layouts are more interesting and flow better and stuff, because a lot of the original maps feel like really someone's amateur, like someone started mapping for. Oh, wonderful! This part is wonderful.
Yeah, there's actually you'll notice before you drop down, there's a door right at the top that opened up, a monster closet, and one of the principles that we introduced. As you'll see on one side of that door, there's a door track, and the other there's just light 3, which doesn't fit at all and was stretched. I think Tonsman actually, when he was making the map, accidentally put it there, but it was actually part of our policy when we were making the map set to, rather than including errors, if we happened upon an error, if something cropped up accidentally, we would make the decision to leave it in, because that was what we believed for the original mappers to do. I mean, because of course they wouldn't include errors, that's silly. They would simply neglect to fix them because they didn't have enough time, because Doom 2 came out so quickly. So we thought that was a fun little way to grab the authenticity of things without being too meddlesome.
Well, there's a lot of this stuff in here. Well, what's up with that ceiling? Why is there that brown stone texture here? I don't think I saw it anywhere else in the map. Wow, interesting. So, but yeah, this feels kind of like, I think I already said it a couple times, and I don't think I can word it any more understandable. Like, what if the original authors were a bit more competent and had a lot more time than they did to make this, but we're still kind of they retained the amateur elements of people who don't really have a lot of reference on what is good and what is bad, but they were more comfortable with their own game. And yeah, the original maps, they do feel, I mean, I don't know, it's probably everyone does it, or maybe most people do it. When they start mapping for games like this, the maps usually come out a bit, I don't know, gimmicky, more idea-driven or something, and one could make something that would be embarrassing later, not just because it looks bad, but because it's really strange and not really doesn't really play well, but has some random idea that the mapper thought was interesting or good at first. And these maps all kind of, well, they look like the original Doom maps, but they feel a bit more, I don't know, well, I know, but I forgot the word. What's the word? Consistent, I guess, in quality. And well, I will not fault them for that at all. But I feel like, well, unless there's shit like tricks and traps in here at some point.
Well, Tonsman was certainly one of the members on the team who loved to emulate parts of this style of certain mappers that we neglected to include in our maps because we were worried that, you know, certain people might not find them very fun to play, or would find them, you know, complete bullshit, to be honest. But that's part of the design, you know. It's what Sandy does. I mean, really, if you played Doom 2 and there were a couple of maps that you absolutely despised, it's our duty to make sure that you feel the exact same way about Doom 2 the way it did. That you stumble into two maps that you also despise for very similar reasons. And that was actually, I think, one of the problems we had with the first Doom the way it did, in that we were very afraid to include those sort of elements. And it's a bit of a controversial point, but again, it stems from the same argument that, you know, we can't beat about the bush with this. We have to go all cards in, or we don't do it at all. We have to try and emulate it as best we can, or we fail the project, or it's completely pointless, in my mind. So that's what Tonsman did. He stepped up to the plate. Well, some might say I tried to do so with map 27 once we get to that. But he stepped up to the plate and he said, no, we don't have enough bullshit here. How about this? Essel hated it. He warmed it. We're talking about map 9, but when we get to it, you'll see. It's very gimmicky in that sort of way. But that's the dichotomy of love and hate, the love-hate relationship with Doom 2, and Tonsman was very good in making sure that we grabbed that.
Well, I guess when we get to the Sandy style maps, it'll be more apparent. I am hanging around this area for very extensively, because I just want to say this is probably the least Doom looking place of the three maps so far. I don't know why, just these lights, and I know it just kind of looks more POD than anything to me personally, as well as these constructions.
Incidentally, are you talking about these Y lights?
Yeah, why? It's just why.
They are kind of Y-shaped, yeah. No, I can see American personally doing crazy architectural things like that. Because, I mean, again, it comes down to some of his detailing, where he'll leave certain rooms completely bland. I mean, take map 6, for instance. You have entire walls which are completely undetailed, and then you'll round a corner and then you'll have some horrendously over-detailed wall which is completely pointless. Again, it was almost as though he just got bored.
I don't think there was anything horrendously over-detailed in Doom 2. There wasn't enough lines in the whole game to have anything really horrendously over-detailed. But yeah, that exit that you mentioned before and stuff like that, yeah, definitely kind of weird to see. But the interesting point is, you probably have definitely all studied a bit for this and have a much better grasp on the styles. So you could probably do a bit of a thought exercise and imagine what would if one of the mappers did a map that in a map slot that he didn't actually have in the original games or something like that, or not just juggling the same kind of ideas, but what if Sandy came up with another wacky idea that has nothing like it in the original games, but does this new wacky idea feel like something that Sandy would do, for example? And I'm wondering if there is a lot of that kind of stuff here, or if it's just mix the original ideas in a different way. How do you feel about it?
You take Sandy's mentality Sandy, compared to someone like Romero, who tend to reuse ideas a heck of a lot. I mean, not just the ideas, everything down from the texturing to the motifs. It's very easy to take a look at the maps that we've included for Romero in this and compare them with those in the stock Doom and say, you know, he's reusing the same motifs, but I mean, we're not reusing the same ideas necessarily when it comes to Sandy. I mean, there are certain ideas that he applies when it comes to structuring things, to texturing things. There are moments when he's strangely meticulous. I mean, if you take a look at E2M9, I know it's Doom and it's not Doom 2, although map 18 there are certain elements of this. There are times when he almost pointlessly aligns textures that you would never notice even if you stopped and look at it. Compared to someone like McGee, who would take a texture that you simply wouldn't notice if it was aligned, and then he'd use that texture as an excuse not to align something. And you compare that to Sandy, who would align Grapevine and something just because, again, he might have been bored or something like that. We can only imagine as to what his reasoning was there. But beyond that, the actual ideas that he used for a particular map, because when he introduced an idea into a map, everything else about the map, the layout, the texturing, everything would be made to work specifically for that idea, and he would include just enough to make that idea work, and then he'd leave the map alone. So you think of most of his maps can be reduced to like a very simple sentence with regards to what the idea is. I mean, so downtown, for instance, is just a city block housing separate concepts, for example. Nirvana is simply, I guess that's sort of an odd one out in that he just came up, it was almost like a dumping ground for ideas, sort of thing. There are like 3 or 4 separate ideas that aren't connected in any way, and then you simply came up with a name for them and then hashed them together. And we
They're connected by teleporters.
Example like that. The Pit, his sort of map 8 to 10 range is a little confusing, and then it's very middling. He was trying to do space-based stuff, but he only had loose ideas to... I mean, once you grasp Sandy's idea and how he sort of comes up with ideas, then you can really just go wild and come up with anything and say that this is something Sandy would have done. And then it's really only important that once you've got whatever idea you have in mind, that the absolutes about his mapping style and texturing and layout and geometry and stuff like that is focused on supporting that idea. So that's actually the way in which you sort of go about making a Sandy map. What's his idea for it? Okay, now that you've got the idea, and that can be whatever the hell you want it to be, now that you've got that idea, use the rules of Sandy mapping in order to bring that idea to life, and don't add anything more. That's basically it.
And
Sandy, at least.
This, folks, is why I have this guy in this Let's Play. Well, I don't think I have much to add, except for if it was me analyzing, I would probably say that what ideas, his idea is to not really care about what he's doing. But obviously I haven't put any thought into his maps ever.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could not care about what you're doing, but you won't be aware of the ideas that you employ. I mean, Romero, for example, he had rules when he mapped, and I think he's actually spoken about those rules somewhere.
Yeah, I remember there's like height variations every time there is a floor variation, border textures between every texture on the wall and shit like that.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's a lot of motifs that he constantly reuses.
Oh, did you actually drop out?
No, sorry, I didn't drop out. I just finished with an
Oh, okay. I thought, damn it, it actually happened. I have to stop the recording and do all sorts of random stuff to get you back, but no. Okay, so, well, there's that, I guess. And this, I'm not
trying
really...
to pace myself, otherwise I might rabbit on, burn myself out by the time we get to map 10.
I'm not sure we'll get to map 10 in this session, but I don't know. We might be able to finish this Let's Play in like 3 sessions if I do a lot of action. I mean, in this resolution I can probably afford to record the entire WOD at once and still have enough space left for other Let's Play episodes from other games. But, what the fuck am I doing here? When I'm talking and playing, I just completely pay no attention to anything ever. So you could probably, if anyone paid attention to the way I was walking around this map and probably the previous map, you would probably tear your hair out or something. Because I was just... Well, there was a locked door? Well, there's probably a locked door around since I have a key. Let's go look at the map where I haven't been. Just no memory whatsoever. So now... I don't know. I want to talk about it, so bear with my terrible attention span here.